Hello and welcome back. Now we're going to talk about actually doing the drawing within a UI view. There is a function within the UI view template, and when we subclass UI view, we'll see that function, and it is commented out. It's called drawRect. The reason it's commented out is we really shouldn't use drawRect unless we're performing custom drawing within the view. But that's what we're doing now, so we'll uncomment that drawRect function as the first step. All custom drawing in a UI view is done within what we call a graphics context. The context is of type CG context ref, and we get that by making a variable of type CG context ref, and this is not a pointer type. This is a statically declared variable. It is the return value of the function UI graphics get current context void. The context is used as the first parameter of virtually every function that we call from here on out to draw within the view. So the first couple of things we're going to do is to set the stroke color and or the fill color for drawing the line or filling the shape by calling one or both of these methods, CG context set RGB stroke color, CG context set RGB fill color. Each function, and there's other color functions, there's many dozens of functions that all start with the word CG context, and they're defined, and I'll show you where they're defined a little bit later. But there's many functions for setting the stroke color and the fill color depending on what kind of value you want to set those. But RGB stroke color and RGB fill color are sample functions, and they're the simplest to understand. Each of these two functions has 5 parameters. The first parameter is the context ref, and then that's followed by the red, green, blue, and alpha values as floats between 0 and 1 for the color. We might also set the stroke width by calling CG context set line width, and again we pass it to context and then a floating point value for the width. So after doing that, we can draw anything we want. One common pattern is to draw a series of lines, which we also call a path, by calling CG context move to point and then CG context add line to point. So move to point will move our starting point to a point within the context, within the view's bounds, and then it takes 3 parameters, the context, the x and y coordinate, and then add line to point will draw from the last known point in the path to the point given. We can draw an ellipse if we want by calling CG context add ellipse in rect. And if that rectangle, that CG rect object is a square, then the ellipse is going to be a circle. It's also possible to draw arcs. It's also possible to draw virtually anything we want. We can have Bezier paths. We can do a ton of stuff within the context of drawRect. CG context add arc, though, takes the context ref, the XY, which is the center point, the radius, the start angle, the end angle, and whether or not a 0 or 1 for the direction to draw the arc. Clockwise, I think, is a 1, and then counterclockwise is a 0. So, like I say, there's a ton of functions available. Now, we can get to this by using a command click on one of these functions or option click to get to cgcontext.h. And we can also go to the core graphics documentation for a listing and a discussion of all of these functions. But after we draw the lines, the rectangles, the ellipses, the arcs, the Bezier curves, the whole bit, after we draw whatever we're going to be drawing, we can stroke or fill the path that we just drew by calling one of these two functions, the stroke path with the context or the fill path with the context. We can also fill in one color and stroke in another, depending on the values of CG Context Set RGB Fill Color and CG Context Set RGB Stroke Color that we talked about before. But notice, we don't have to give it a path because it knows what the path is since the last time one or the other of these functions has called. So the path just keeps building. Every time we build a path, then we stroke the path or fill the path, and then we're starting on building a new path. So these functions will stroke or fill the path created since the last call to either one of these functions. So that's really it as far as drawing 2D graphics, as far as the discussion goes. Now, the demos will show you how we get the drawing done from the point of view of taking a string from the database and converting it to something that is drawable, and then drawing that path and filling that path within a small view that we add to our detail view controller. Thank you very much.